Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here, and for a while we haven't done any of those UFC event breakdowns or post fight breakdowns or anything. But here we are. We have a huge one coming. It's UFC 284 from Perth, Australia. So we have an Australian Aussie fighter, my sister Danielle Dropbear Curtis here to help us with the breakdowns and giving you some of those interesting betting props and everything. And this is gonna be exciting. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing so good. Happy to be here and very excited about this upcoming card just over a week. I will be in attendance, so very, very
Oh,
excited. Yeah, it's going to be great. Seeing a very historic event in person with the pound for pound number one taking on pound for pound number two for the double champ status and being Aussie. So doesn't get
exactly.
better than that.
Yeah, there's a lot of pride there, and you just said it, and I think I mentioned it yesterday that I don't think this card is getting the attention that it deserves because on paper this should actually be the biggest fight of all time that we've had, but it will not be treated as
Absolutely.
such. Yeah,
Oh, you have no clue how mad I am about that.
yeah, you,
uh,
you expressed some frustrations yesterday, but now's the time to sort of vent. You can vent here if you want.
yeah, I just think it's crazy given that this is, yeah, possibly the most historic event in UFC history.
I agree.
We have never had pound for pound number one fighting pound for pound number two. We're going for double champ status at the same time. And not only that, double champ status of the two most stacked divisions, not
Hmm.
just in the UFC, in in any promotion. They're just two of the most stacked weight divisions that there is, stacked with deep, deep talent. And we've got someone, I just don't understand it. Pound for pound, number one guy
And
in his home country, and didn't even lose a single round last year, and he's also the underdog. Makes
uh,
no sense, but
exactly.
yeah,
And the win streaks on both ends too.
yeah, win
They've
streaks, massive.
both only been defeated once. For Volk, that was way longer ago than it was for Islam, I believe. Um,
That's it,
but
and at a much heavier weight division too.
yeah, yeah, at his height, that's crazy. So, um, it is not getting the attention it deserves and the promotion it deserves. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that maybe they'll start amping it up now, like Monday when fight week starts and stuff like that. But they should have started like ages ago. It's they kind of left it to the media, but even the media isn't really like doing as much with it as they should. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. Like it's so easy. There's so much storyline here. There's so much that you can do in terms of hyping this up. There's so many angles you can take, and yet no one's doing it. Um,
And you
which
know
I
how
think is just
many
crazy.
just all the talents that are coming out of both countries, like out of Russia, out of
The
especially the
Anzacs.
Caucasus areas, the Dagestanis and the Aussies as well. They're all coming up, which is very evident on this card when you look at the
Yeah.
type of talent that's there. There's a lot of Contender Series people. Everyone from Contender Series. It looks like every Aussie on the Contender Series is getting a contract now, and it's a testament to how big the sport is getting. But I think when there's less media attention or the US isn't as involved, it's like the UFC almost tends to like not give as much attention to those cards, and,
Yeah,
and,
I
and
agree.
understanding the size of it, because I mean, this was off topic like a while, like when is it? A few weeks ago when I told you I didn't realize how massive Australia is in comparison to the United States because how it's
Yeah.
represented on the world map. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like they're almost the same size,
yeah,
which
exactly.
is crazy.
Not big.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So shall we jump into the main event first, or do you want to first
Oh,
like
no, no,
look
no.
into?
Main event should be
Yeah,
last.
that
I
should be
think we
last.
go in fight order.
So I think.
So we can roll through the first ones a bit quicker
Hmm.
and sort of highlight, I think would be good. So we
Absolutely.
get the non-Aussies out of the way first.
You want to get the non-Aussies out the other way. Well, okay.
Yeah.
We'll start main card, and then later on we have a little segment where we would like to also give some shine to our favorite prelims and prelim fighters that are the most interesting to us. But let's start with Jimmy Crute's getting a main pay-per-view main card spot over here. So I guess Alonzo Manyfield, how do you see that one going?
Oh, I'm so excited for this one. I'm so excited to see Jimmy Crute back in the cage after some injuries. So he's just come back from obviously knee injury, pretty significant one. He pretty much had no ACL for quite a long time, and he was still fighting with it. I seen him in an interview only earlier this week, saying that he probably didn't realize how bad it was and how it impacted him until now that it's better. He's actually able to sprawl in training now properly, which he hasn't been able to do in a very, very long time. So I think we're going to see a very invigorated Jimmy Crute, and he's going to be bringing everything. And I think that's part of the reason why we may have seen him in these last few fights. When he first came in, he really did mix the wrestling in there as well as his striking, and we sort of see him not be quite as successful in his last few. And I guess people kind of thought, well, maybe it's not working as he's facing these harder opponents, but everyone may not have realized how injured he really was. So I think we may see a bit more wrestling from Jimmy Crute in this one, mixing that in with his striking. And I think he's going to be absolutely relentless.
Because I just realized, because I thought the Anthony Smith fight where he got injured was his last one. I just saw he got TKO'd against Jamal Hill, who is now the current champion. So when you see the names he's been fighting, if he's figured it out, with his injury and all that, he
well, he did get the drop foot in the perineal nerve because
he was winning. He was on his way to winning that one, but it was like one round only I think it was the second round that it happened already, isn't it?
And it just
then
he did everything he could. He tried, but there's not much you can do in that scenario. So
and as I said, it was like Anthony Smith, who was the backup fighter for the last title fight between Glover and Jamal Hill, and then the loss against Jamal Hill. So he has been fighting the top of the division, so he could have a quick rise to the title if he gets it together,
Absolutely, and I think he just needs to put a few good performances together, especially now that he's back, he's healthy. And the other thing that he said is mentally, he's healthier than he ever has been. And he talked about being quite scared, but probably taking the wrong approach when he fought Jamal. And I think that's probably going to be another one of those things that's going to be a game changer for him in this fight. So interestingly enough, given that Jimmy has lost his last couple of fights, he is actually the favorite coming into this fight. So I'm taking my odds from Sportsbet because that is one of the biggest betting sites here in Australia. So at the moment, I have a feeling
a lot of Australians are going to watch this.
Yeah. So take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, the odding the betting odds are influenced by a few things, people's performances, but also who's being bet on the most will also impact that. So obviously the Aussies that will be impacted, but he's sitting at $1.41 and Menefield is sitting out at $2.82, which is interesting. I thought it would have been a little bit closer than that.
Exactly. That surprises me a lot because Menefield was tipped to be a huge talent when he came into the UFC. He was like one of those that they thought hey, it could be a title contender one day. But
similar journey for them both.
Yeah, he's had that's the thing. It's a strength of schedule thing. It seems I think because I remember the last one. Well, he just beat Misha Serkinov, who was kind of on his way out and always doubtful in between which weight division he's going to fight in. It was never all that. Before that, he had that guy. What's his name? Let me see, Askar. Oh yeah, Mozarov. That's the guy. The guy who scammed his way into the UFC basically, and he really made it. He really made it known that he had bad blood against the guy because of that. And he did what he had to do. He TKO'd him and everything, but those are not the big names that I think it's more of a coming out party or home crowd opening the main card. They want the Aussie to get the win, but still it's not an easy fight, so
it's definitely not an easy fight.
No.
And these are big boys. There's a lot of power there behind both of them. Either of them could win the fight, and I just really think that we're going to see a lot more of Jimmy's wrestling, and he has some phenomenal wrestling, and he is able to mix. I think what makes him really good is he's able to mix between the striking and wrestling quite well, and I think that's going to be the tail of this fight. purely because he hasn't really been able to do it. Like he's been fighting basically with no ACL. So
Yeah.
props to him. He's very tough. But Menafield going to be one of the like a big test to see where Jimmy's at and if he's tried to rush coming back, which I don't feel like he has, but
he's got to test that chin probably, but like at the same
and the
time,
knee.
you know, yeah, test it. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Alonzo Minifield. He's you know, he has that KO power, but he does it for me. Is low volume enough to, you know, for Jimmy Crute to be able to like work in that wrestling in a way. You know what I mean? And in terms of betting, when you talk betting, and when I'm betting, usually I like those. What I like about Jimmy Crute is exactly the way that he knows how to mix things up. You know, has a plan A, B, and C, and it's pretty reliable. So you get reliability all the time when you want to bet on him. Yeah, and then I would say the other, like, I think one of the big highlights on this card, on this main card, is going to be Jack Della Maddalena.
Absolutely. His hometown.
Yeah, in his hometown, getting for his first big test, in my opinion, as well. But, you know, you can argue he's had a mixed bag of opponents that they've given him. They've given him the striker. They've given him the grappler. They've given him, you know, he's been tested in all those areas and has passed it with flying colors, just getting finishes all over the place.
Dominant finishes.
Just dominant finishes, exactly. Activity, you know, how many fights did he have? Contender Series, and then 3 more in 1 year, was it?
Then well, and even like realistically, he didn't fight that long ago. Like they didn't think originally that he was going to be on this card because he only fought the end of last year. But again, as he does, dominant performance. Finish, didn't take any damage.
First round finish.
So everyone always talks about everyone talks about how like Chimaev is crazy, took no damage in his, you know, first few fights. I feel like Jack has kind of done the same thing. He's barely taken any damage.
Not at all.
So like, do you want to know the odds on this fight?
I'm looking about give me the odds.
Yeah.
Because here it's giving me the American one and I don't understand it quite as well.
Cool. So obviously Jack, hometown boy, he is the favorite. So JDM is sitting at $1.28. Wow. Randy Brown, $3.60. Now that is huge, given that this is possibly Jack's biggest test to date.
That's crazy. That is great because he was against Emeev. What was it, Emeev? Against Emeev, I think he was less of a favorite.
Yes.
You know, and I mean, perhaps the grappling there was the odd factor. You know, like that they were like, okay, this guy's a really good grappler. Yeah, stylistically, but no problems because Randy has. Continue.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like that's heavily impacted by probably all of Perth getting on board and probably all putting some money on Jack Della Maddalena.
Yeah, so. You know what I'm about to do? I'm about to open my odds and see how the sites here are doing. But again, Maddalena, one of my, like, when the Contender Series started, like, and I was looking into those fighters and everything, he was like, for that season, he was like either 1 or 2 for me, like top of the top talent that I see challenging for the title one day, and he's really proved it so far. There's no real blemish at all. In fact, I think his toughest fight was actually Angelusa on the Contender Series, and that one went to the decision as well. But there he showed he could get out of the submissions. He was into some deep submissions. He got out of them pretty fast. You know what I mean? And so far he's shown his incredible boxing, because I think he's one of the top boxers in the UFC.
Absolutely. Like, and that's it. I guess if you were an outsider and you didn't have much exposure, you look at his fights and you go, he doesn't really look like he's hitting people hard, and yet they're going down, or they're going to sleep.
And it's shot placement.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah,
they're just perfect. He's like a sniper.
Yeah,
always on the money.
And then I see the replays. I was telling you this yesterday. Like, it's like he hits a combination where it's like it's almost as if he sees half a second into the future where the guard's going to be, where the blocks are going to be, and he just goes around them, you know. and it's like yeah.
Watching him in slow motion is like when you watch Valentina's fights in slow motion when she's doing like the spinning attacks, or and
Yeah.
everything is just perfectly timed and perfectly placed.
Yeah, I
It's just
suggested
poetry in motion.
exactly. I suggested to people like go watch those Jack fights and like play it in half speed or something like that, and it's a thing of beauty. But we're kind of looking over Randy Brown here, who for me is also like one of those top talents that I can see going really far. So this is a very interesting matchup, and then the length. What do you make of the height difference and the reach advantage that Randy Brown has? Because I think that's going to be the next sort of intense or the next factor that he has to work against. Yeah, that Jack's going to have to work against. So how do you see that making a difference?
I feel like on the regional scene, Jack's probably had maybe a couple of people that were longer than him. So I feel like it's probably not new. However, obviously it may be new at this high of a level because it's a game of inches at this level. And we know in every scenario, extra reach can always play a role, especially on the game plan. Like if Jack can't hit Randy, how's he going to win? So you never know if Randy plays that long game and is moving and evading and just not letting Jack near him, that he might be able to pull off a decision. I don't think that, but that would be the way that it goes. I don't think Randy puts away Jack without playing some or taking some risks, and that's where Jack is the best. If you want to come at him, he's going to be moving. He's hard to hit. And as you said, he just great shot selection. He's going to find a spot to get you.
Because you're seeing what are you seeing a late finish?
Don't know. It depends. For me, it depends what Randy does. If Randy goes forward, it may come a lot earlier.
That's true.
If he sits and plays and counters, or just trying to keep Jack at long reach and moving and is just trying not to let him anywhere near him, then it may come a lot later or maybe a decision. But I think Jack finds a way no matter what to get in there and put hands on him, whether or not he puts him away. We'll see how much running Randy does.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree with you on that one. Like he's probably gonna have to keep it long, keep it at range, and like hope on a decision.
I haven't looked whether or not they're bringing the full-size cage, because usually when they travel to Australia, they usually bring the smaller cage that they use for the fight nights, which could impact that most of the time. I think when Holm Rousey came, I think they bought the full-size cage, but most of the shows in Australia were usually the slightly smaller cage, not the smaller cage, but
not the Apex cage.
I don't know. Yeah, not the Apex cage.
Okay,
But so that could play a factor as well. I would assume, given that it's pound for pound number 1 and 2, hopefully, and 2 title fights, that they would be bringing the full size cage.
Depends who the promotion is trying to get behind. If they're really trying to push Islam, they're going to get the small cage,
Exactly. Yeah. If they want Islam to win, they'll probably give him the small cage. But I would assume they're in the full size cage. So that would play into Randy's game probably a little bit more, being able to move.
Well, again, excited. Well, I see it. So I see playing out that way, and I think. What kind of part of? No, I can't say hope. I have to be unbiased here. So, okay, co-main event, huge one. Possible title eliminator here. Yair Rodriguez is on a run.
I'm going to start with. Yeah. I'm going to start with the odds real quick, because I feel like we need to talk about them a little bit with some background after. So interestingly enough, is the favorite at $1.60, and we have Josh Emmett out at $2.28. Now, I find this fascinating, given that if we look at their last 4 fights, Josh Emmett is on a 4-fight win streak, and is 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 no contest.
And that's
I find that fascinating.
It is pretty fast, especially looking at their record. Well, Josh Emmett 18-2. I cannot remember the last time this guy lost. Like I don't know who he lost. I'm about to open the topology here, see if my memory serves me. Jeremy Stevens. Oh, sir. Okay, the round 2 lost to punches. Okay, round 2
Yeah,
TKO 2018. And when did Yair have that eye gouge thingy? Oh, the eye gouge no
not
contest.
long
Also
ago.
against Jeremy Stevens. I think for Yair it's the strength of schedule again. He's just fought the top of the division. Yeah, wait, what is it? Oh yeah, and he fought Max, which by the way was a war. He fought Max, like he had a very good performance against Max and lost. And then the Brian Ortega one, he was he was winning, wasn't he? Anyway, when that shoulder injury happened,
Yeah, I
I don't
guess
remember.
so.
I
Yeah,
don't. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it was close. You never know. You never know what the judges are going to
yeah.
say. So, he gets the win over Brian Ortega, but again, we did have that crazy shoulder injury.
Mm-hmm.
He lost to Max Holloway. Okay. He beat Jeremy Stevens again, but it was also a decision. And before that was the eye poke with Jeremy Stevens. If
Yeah.
we look at Josh Emmett, his last fight was Calvin Cater. Before that, Dan Ige,
Mm-hmm.
Shane Burgos, Mirsad Bektik, and Michael Johnson. So if we look at his last
Oh,
5, all wins,
that Michael Johnson, that knockout was
and that was a
vicious, vicious one.
vicious knockout. And
Mm-hmm.
we look at that, we've got knockout, technical knockout, decision unanimous, and then obviously the split decision against
I'm very surprised about the
Cater.
decisions, by the way. Because the man hits like a truck, and even in those fights,
Yeah,
he landed a couple of big shots. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
you were
I
saying,
think it's just one of those things with the judges. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't make the right decision, but in that case, they made the right decision, but one of the judges in my eyes didn't get that right. I had Emmett winning that one. What I find really interesting about this fight as well too, if we have a look at the percentage of the times that they have won
Mhm.
when they are the favorite versus when they are the underdog. So they're very similar when they're the favorite. Yeah, has won 87.5% of the time that he's been a favorite. So he's been rightly the favorite.
Mhm.
Um, Emmett's not far behind on 75%, but where it gets really interesting is the underdog. When Yair Rodriguez is the underdog, he only wins 50% of the time. Now, when Josh Emmett is the underdog, which he frequently is, he wins 85.7% of the time. And you know that he's coming with everything he's got twice as hard when he's the underdog. And that's why I think that's going to make this fight really interesting.
Yeah, I
Really interesting.
this one I'm looking forward to. Like, this is insanity because they both also looked the best they've ever looked. Like the way Emmett's been looking the last 2 fights, the best he's ever looked. Yeah, years reinvented, and especially since the Max fight, like that Max fight, that's I think the best he's looked for me as well in a
Yeah.
loss, which says a lot. And I was saying this. I mean, when I saw that statistic, I think there's a lot more to be said or a lot more credit to be given to the guy that's winning 85% of the time as the underdog, actually.
Absolutely.
And I don't know
Absolutely.
how far he's. Let me see the odds here quick. Emmett's 2.32, 2.32 underdog. So that's more than twice your money back. I would take a stab at it because this man has only lost twice in his career. He hits hard. He's hard to hit. And Yair is known to take risks. So what do we do?
That's it. I mean, Josh Emmett can put anyone away, but even if he doesn't put them away, like he does damage, and damage is the main scoring criteria.
Yeah, that's the
So,
new
you know,
rules, basically. Yeah.
yeah, the unified rules is, well, it's impact, which is damage,
Yeah.
dominance, and duration. So, and they don't look at the other 2 criteria unless they can't determine who's won the round based off of impact, which is pretty much damage. So, I think that's going to be the key thing here with styles. Like they both like to strike.
Mhm.
They've both got different striking styles, but yeah, probably is probably going to try and look for a little bit more volume, and he's probably going to have a vast array of different kinds of strikes. We know he likes elbows. We know he likes
Mm-hmm.
strikes from different ranges. He's really good with that kind of thing. We know that Josh Emmett is looking to put someone down with the right hand. He's also got a nasty hook, but he's just quite good with his hands in general. Like, he can hurt you with a jab. He can hurt you with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think he is going to be looking to, if he can't win the fight and put Yair away with a stoppage, I think his style works well with the judges in terms of scoring and making sure that he takes a round.
Because even against a very decorated striker, Kelvin Kattar, who is seen as one of the best boxers in MMA, he still managed, where a lot of people think that Kattar won. I was on the side of Emmett. Like, I agree with that decision, because I think mostly based on the damage as well. I believe, was it true that Kattar, I think, landed more strikes on the numbers?
Kattar definitely landed more strikes.
And that's where people had this discussion. Yeah, exactly. But the rules are damage, and
scoring criteria damage, because that's the thing too. You're trying to end the fight. So how do you win a fight? You either hurt someone until they submit, or you hurt someone until they can't respond or are unconscious, or the referee has to stop it.
Yeah.
So what is closest to either one of those? Yeah. Damaging the person and impacting them so that you can see that you're taking away their weapons, or they're not responding as well. And so being hit heaps of times, but it not really impacting you or doing much damage, that's why it doesn't really score that high. Because you can hit someone 100 times in a round, and if they're still standing and they look like they're fine, and they hit you with one massive right hand and it drops you to the ground, and okay, you might get back up, but it's clear that you've been hurt a lot worse than they have.
Those are like Nate Diaz rules, basically. It's like, who would win in a street fight?
And then you point at them and laugh, and then lose anyway.
Yeah, lose anyway. Yeah. It's like, but that's the thing. It's the point of the name of the game is, do your best to win. How do you win? What's the most definitive way to win? It's to get a finish. So, pressing the action. And I think it's very important for them to promote that too, because like half the time there was a lot of bad judging decisions based on like basically where the gray area is the clinch work. When there's clinch work on the cage, like, is it the person who's controlling and holding the person and like controlling where it happens, or the person who's actually doing the most damage? For a while, it was really confusing for those, there was a lot of weird judging decisions based on, someone doing more damage on the cage, but they're the ones being controlled, and then that person wins. So I think it's also positive for the fans. It's like fan friendly to sort of, have the person judge it on damage. Yeah. And I think they've been pushing that a little bit more to try to sort of fix a couple of kinks of the many that there are in judging.
I mean, sometimes it's super close, and the volume has done pretty much the same amount of damage as the less amount of strikes that have done damage. There might be 20 power shots thrown by Emmett, and there might be 60 shots that aren't as heavy, haven't done individually as much damage by Yair, but they end up being the same. And then you look at those other criteria. Then you're looking at who's controlling the action. Then you're looking at who's dominating the action. You're looking at, all those other bits and pieces. So that may be who's holding who against the cage, or who's on top of who in the controlling position, or who's dictating when they actually interact and strike. Because that is part of it. And that is part of like those Max and Volkanovski fights where people are like, well, Volkanovski's going backwards. Yes. But if the damage is the same, and we are looking at those other bits and pieces of criteria, who dictates where the fight happens is actually the one who's being more dominant. Doesn't matter if you're going forward or backwards. If you're going backwards, but then you dictate when you start to actually have that piece of action, well, you're actually dictating where the fight happens. Same thing with if you're taking someone down, and like, again, this is only if you can't tell who wins because the damage was similar. If you've taken someone down and you're holding them there, if neither of you done any damage or the damage is the same, well, you're dictating where the fight's happening. So you are winning. But again, we only look at those things if we can't determine the winner already.
It is there's like the final deciding factor. It's like that third judge, that thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's got to be a way. Like that's pretty much what they would have had to do in the Carla Rose fight because there was no damage from either of them.
yeah,
So they had to look at the other scoring criteria.
and
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 that
and
I think that's really important for fighters too, is to understand how to win.
yeah,
Because if like, especially when you get to that elite level, you can't you can't always put someone away. It
no,
just may not happen. So you should really understand the judging and scoring criteria so that you know how to win. Because imagine if you rocked up to a sport and you didn't actually know what you had to do to win. Like you rocked up to basketball and were like, oh yeah. So I just I launch this at people like dodgeball and that's how I score, right? Like
yeah, which is like, yeah, it's
yeah,
how it's been for a while for some people though. Like for close fights especially, you just don't know what to do to win. Sometimes it's like that's it. Like, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. When they used to say that, at least now
I
there's a
mean,
little bit more
yeah.
clarity in a sense to be, which I mean, there still isn't 100% clarity, but at least they're
And there's
yeah.
those environmental factors. And like at the end of the day, the judges are people and they will have different opinions and they will interpret the scoring criteria slightly different. And
Mhm.
they'll have different angles of seeing the fight. So they may not see something that happens. They may be hearing it from different sides. So it may sound worse. And the other thing too we need to remember is that not all judges, a majority of officials probably haven't ever had fights. They may not have um, competed in any martial art before,
Mhm.
and they may think that you know a jab hurts more than a leg kick, and I can tell you I would much rather be jabbed in the face than
Yeah.
cop a big nasty leg kick. And
Hmm.
that's the thing too, that sometimes those things, like especially the thudding leg kicks, may not sort of register with them.
I just had the camera. I lost you for camera for a second, but I still have the audio, so it's fine.
That's all right. That's all right.
Um,
I'll fix that back up 1 second. But
yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
I just think it's one of those things.
So I was gonna ask you as well, like, so if you're in a fight and you know it's a really really close fight and you're in the last round and it's just like you're halfway through the round, it's you feel the finish isn't gonna happen. Like, what are some things that you're doing to make sure to sway the judges? Like, what are some of the things that you try to consciously do as far as you can get your brain to think about those things at the moment?
So are you talking like walking out for the third round?
Let's say you're like the beginning of the third round, like you're like a minute or a little bit further
Oh,
into the
in
third
between
round.
rounds?
No,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like throughout, and you're just realizing like this finish is just not gonna happen, and it's a really close fight. Like, what are some of those things that you can do to sway the judges that do you ever, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, like we definitely think about it. I definitely thought about it probably in my rematch last year, walking out for the third round in a really, really close fight. Um, and I think about that and go, I need to do damage. I need to throw caution to the wind if it's close and I'm not 100% certain, or even if I think that I'm winning, I need to make sure that I take this round. And I mean, you've only got those few minutes left. It's the last round.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not worry about not taking damage, because if you're just worrying about not taking damage, then you're probably not taking the risk to actually damage your opponent.
Yeah.
And you need to go with what you're good at. You need to not worry about their game plan. You need to just go with what you're good at. You need to get some damage. So if that's you need to take them down, cool, take them down, make sure you do damage. Because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like something that people probably don't think about enough with some of the grappling heavy guys, you need to be doing damage. So if we look at Khabib, earlier on in his UFC career, he almost lost a fight. Not because he couldn't wrestle, he was still a phenomenal wrestler. The problem was he was just wrestling.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing damage. Um, and almost losing that fight is what shaped him into the fighter that he became, where he made sure not only did he take people down, he either finished them with submissions or he was ground and pounding. And that's
Mauling.
why he went on that. He went on that sort of like string of fights where one, he realized it was the way to ensure that if you don't stop them, you will win a decision, no problems. Two, it's easy to break people when you're smashing their face in, but they also can't get up. And three, it's exciting. So he was getting a lot more attention.
Yeah.
But it took him almost losing a fight in the UFC to realize, I can't just wrestle. I actually need to make sure that I wrestle to a position where I can do damage.
You see
And I
that a
think
lot.
yeah.
Saying like you see that a lot with fighters who just like came off a robbery or like perceived that they want to fight, and like I mean, in a way, well, Chito Vera kind of like is an example for me. Like he's been robbed a lot for me, like especially since that Yadong fight. He's just been getting like finish after finish after finish, and without high volume, he just knows. It's crazy. Like he just knows where to hit the person, you know, and he knows he'll find
and
that
he's
shot.
Motivated to get those finishes as well.
Sitting on every shot, yeah, exactly.
And that's it. Like, and it quite often doesn't come until a little bit later for him because he likes to feel out his opponent.
Yeah.
Get a read on them. Mm-hmm. You know, he might hurt them. Like we've seen him hurt people and then not rush to finish them.
Yeah.
Because he's like, no, it'll come. Like I don't feel threatened. I've got it down now. I know what they're doing.
And just like that, yeah, like the Rob Font fight. And there he like dropped him or like hurt him several times, even though he was losing on volume. Like he was getting hit a lot, but his shots were effective. They were the significant ones that were dropping him, and there was no dispute for anyone who was winning that fight anyway. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Shall we get to the big one?
Let's do the big one. The big one. So I think
it's also going to be interesting. I just want to mention that we have the interim title fight. So we will get to see how these two, whoever wins, exactly how they go about it, how much damage they take, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be the same timeline for them as it is for Volk to turn around and have a match with them. So I think it's an interesting dynamic to have them all there at the same event, getting ready, fighting, to then, know that they're going to be fighting each other, whoever it is, they're going to know who their next opponent is straight away. Yeah, that's interesting mentally. I feel
featherweight title is not on the line. Featherweight, so that's where that's where they know that who they're fighting. Sorry, who's fighting Volk after, or if Volk's gonna have a rematch with Islam. You know, because I assume if Islam gets beat, there's a rematch clause. I assume.
I don't know if
not a rematch clause,
I don't know if that happens. I don't know if that happens because he only just won the belt.
But
like if he had already defended it 4 or 5 times, absolutely 100%. But if a guy from a smaller division comes up and beats you, as long as it's convincingly, if it's a split decision, maybe, but I don't think so. Like if Volk goes out there and beats Islam, I don't think there's any reason that the UFC would put on another event for that rematch.
Because
there's 155 is so deep with talent and other people waiting in the wings to jump on that title fight. Like he hasn't defended it yet. So
that is true. But I mean, at the same time, people can argue that he didn't deserve that title shot. I mean, now in hindsight, he won it. Like he dominated Charles, but he wasn't supposed to be there. Honestly, like who's had this beat that level of competition that Islam has beat and then went for a title fight. Like skipped basically how many ranks to go up. Like the highest ranked fighter he fought was
I don't know. I feel like there's a few people that have done it. But regardless, I just think if he loses, I don't see why they would give him an immediate rematch. They might give him another shot, like they might do someone else and he might have to wait and he might not have to fight someone else to get back to having a fight against Volk. But that division is so stacked. Like if you look at all the champions who have lost the belt, tell me which one of them have had an immediate rematch that you can remember, because the division is so deep.
That's true. Yeah. I can't remember. I'm sure there is though, isn't it? Like,
and
anyway, yeah.
Not recently.
Not recently, no. And
Not recently.
well, maybe you're probably right that they because I'm looking at his record now, Islam's, and I think there's no. I mean, Dan Hooker was ranked, but he came from featherweight. Oh no, wait, he was a lightweight. Actually, he went down to
No, he was
featherweight
like,
again. Yeah. So he was ranked, but he was
Yeah.
He was a little bit. I don't know what his ranking was. He was top 10 though, but I don't think like at
Yes,
least beat it.
but he fought Islam on short notice. Remember,
Yeah, he did
he
as well.
fought him on like a week and a half, 2 weeks
Yeah,
notice, or
exactly,
whatever.
and it
So
was across the
so
world. You know,
that's
Abu
not
Dhabi.
fair.
No,
Like,
so he needs
you
to.
can't take the Hooker fight as
So if he loses this one to Volk, I would say finally give him like a ranked opponent again. Don't give him the immediate rematch because at the same time, because the UFC wants to promote him. They know they have a cash cow in Islam for like within the Middle East, within Russia,
Yeah.
and you don't want him
Oh, he's
to
got
lose
a
twice in a
huge
row.
following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah,
throw him
yeah.
back into that immediate rematch. Get him some fights that are good names, good ranked opponents, and work him
100%.
up there again. So us talking about this means we are giving Volk a pretty significant chance of winning, like at least a lot more than the odds suggest. So,
All right. Do you want the odds?
I want to hear the odds first. Yeah.
The odds first, and I think this is absolutely outrageous. And for every Australian out there, bet your house, bet your firstborn on Alexander Volkanovski. Islam, pound for pound number 2, the current lightweight champ. He's a favorite. Sports bet, we've got $1.23.
I got
Now
him
the pound for
$1.25.
pound. Now the pound for pound number 1 in the world, the current featherweight world champion, the guy that didn't lose a single round in all of 2022, and he didn't just have one fight. He is out all the way at, it hurts me to say this, $4.05. He is the longest odds on the card. Tell me,
Well,
how is this possible?
As a betting man, that makes me happy because whatever money I have left after this USA trip, like I am putting it on there to try to make it back and to try to move back. So I don't understand. So I thought Islam, I'm always betting against him, so I'm always losing because I always like doubt if you haven't fought a ranked opponent. As I said, that I'll always take a shot against you whenever you level up. But fair enough. He proved a big point, being the bigger guy. First of all, the size obviously makes a difference here, and just the dominance in the wrestling that we've seen at that higher weight class, and especially the way he dominated and submitted Charles. Who submits Charles these days? That has something to be said for it. But these odds are long. Like, this is just absolutely ridiculous, especially the way that Volkanovski dealt with the deep submissions he was in against Brian Ortega. So
that's it. All right, so I have something I have to bring up before we get into game plans. And I can't believe no one's talking about it. So every time we see a fight in the cold weather, people talk about, how's this going to impact them? Every time we see a fight at altitude, we're like, how's the altitude going to impact this fighter? No one is talking about how the weather in Australia is going to impact Islam. Now, let me give you a little bit more info on that. They're going to be fighting in Perth, in Western Australia, some of the hottest part of Australia. Now, Australia is very hot. We are in the middle of summer.
That's what people need to understand.
Now, for it to be prime time in the US, they will be fighting from morning right through to afternoon here in Australia. Now, if they were fighting in Sydney, if they were fighting in Melbourne, cool. They would be fighting at around 3:00 in the afternoon. They are fighting in Perth, which means they're going to be fighting at about midday, which is the hottest part of the day.
Jesus.
And Australia is very unforgiving, dry heat. And if you haven't experienced it before, let me tell you, it is harsh. It is not like Thailand. It is not like Abu Dhabi. There is no humidity in the really dry parts of Australia. Now it's going to be inside a sold out arena. Yes, this is a brand new RAC arena. I'm sure it has aircon. However, you're still fighting in a sold out arena in the middle of the day in Australia in the middle of summer.
Amongst how many? What's the capacity?
Yeah, well, thousands and thousands of people.
Of crazy or loud Aussies where, because Volk has never gotten the appreciation abroad that he has back home, and he still dominates whenever the crowd is against him. You know, because I mean, it's not his fault that he's fought the fan favorite in Max like 3 times. So obviously, you know, and if you never fight him in Australia, you're just not gonna get the appreciation. This time, you have a fired up Volk with his home crowd. You know, like the first time he has a main event in front of his home crowd, is it? So that's gonna add something too. There's something to be said for that.
Absolutely. And we look, we know that Islam has been out here for, you know, a couple weeks. Cool. He's acclimatizing. But I mean, he just came from the snow.
Right.
That's a big change.
That's a big change.
That is a big change. I'm sorry, but sitting in a sauna where there is again, humidity is not the same as fighting in the dry heat. So I'd just like to say, when Chael Sonnen starts talking about this after you drop this during the week in his next video, that he better give the drop bearer a shout out for bringing out the point that's going to be his next video.
We're gonna keep tagging.
Why is no one talking about this? Yeah.
Let's tag Chael. Everybody, let's tag Chael. I'll put
let's
this clip
tag Chael.
Out. We get all your fans in here too, like commenting, and then he's gonna do a video about it. Then we talk shit about it. So,
but yeah, and so I think how that's going to impact is that, look, Islam may not feel it to begin with, and if he manages to put Volk away early, cool. I don't think anyone puts Alexander Volkanovski away easy or early. And for that, I think we may see, as the fight goes on, the longer it goes, obviously, I feel like it becomes more in Volk's favor. However, I think we may see the impact of the climate on Islam the further that the fight goes on, and we may see him look more tired than we have ever seen him look before, because to be honest, we probably haven't seen him look very tired before. So I'm going to be super interested to see how that plays out.
I'm also interested in seeing like how he deals with the height difference, you know, like, because when I think about like Drew Dober was a little bit on the shorter end, but Thiago Moises was definitely shorter, you know, and those are people he struggled in finishing, at least when we're talking about finishes. Like they managed to survive.
When you got no neck, it's very hard to choke.
Exactly.
Like they can get it, they can find those crevices and move on the ground. They only need to find that tiny bit of space when they're small, and they're usually fast too. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Like it's exactly like those are the stockier opponents that he's just had trouble with. And I think I've always thought, like, as soon as they made this matchup, I was like, height wise, it might work in Volk's favor in a way, you know, like again, wrestlers.
Yeah, well, Volk's the shorter opponent even in his own division. So I mean, it's not much difference for him. If we look at the height of Islam and we look at the height of Max Holloway, Islam's not any taller than Max Holloway. So this is a common scenario for Volk, probably less of a common scenario for Islam. So.
And I want to go, like, again, mixing both factors, the size and the climate, weight cutting. Because Islam doesn't have the easiest cuts. He always makes weight, but, you know, he doesn't have the easiest cuts. So how does that play a factor usually, like when you're cutting a lot of weight and the climate's like the way it is in Perth right now and you're not used to it? Like, how does that impact someone?
Absolutely. And I think also the fact that is everyone's thinking, oh, well, Volk's come up a division, so he's not cutting weight. I can assure you he's cutting weight.
Yeah.
Him and the fight dietitians and their team have done, you know, a lot of work from the moment they knew that they were going to be doing this. So I don't think Volk's going to be undersized or as small as what other people probably think. But I think, yeah, definitely it'd be interesting to see, because cutting weight is one thing. Rehydration for Islam, if he's not doing it right, And even if he does it right, I still think he's going to feel the impacts. If he doesn't get the fight over and done with in the first round, he's really going to feel it. He's going to feel that Australian heat, and it's going to be something that he probably hasn't really experienced too much before. Obviously, he's a great fighter, and I'm sure he can push through anything. But I just think it will impact him.
Physically, yeah, it's not the mental side. It's, because the mental side is always in check for these guys, and those Dagestanis, their discipline is on another level. But it's just like, also what happens when you've been faced with the most adversity that you have faced, so far in your career. And then you have all those factors, those external factors like the crowd and everything against you. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, we haven't seen those kinds of tests yet with Islam. Like, it's been a different level of competition. You're fighting the pound for pound best now. Who, by the way, weight's never been a factor really. Like,
I kind of feel like he's also underestimating Volk. Every time I've seen him in an interview, he's like, "Yeah, well, you're small and Australians don't know how to wrestle." So
yeah,
like everything, he seems too casual and laid back. I know that's who he is, and he's very sure of himself, and he trains incredibly hard, and he should be confident, and he should be sure of himself. But it does have that vibe that he's looking past Volk, going, "Oh, well, I'm just going to have a fight with this midget and then, fight the next person." Like,
which
that's kind of how it seems.
It reminds me
Which
of
I
the
think
way
is
a lot of
dangerous.
opponents talk about him, like a lot of people have
Absolutely.
it. And do you think how about, because Volk's improvement has been one of the most rapid improvements I've seen. He went from, I was doubtful that he would beat Max the first time, and even after the first time, I thought Max would beat him the second time. But what he's shown since then has been like leaps and bounds above like what I used to see before that first Max fight. And it's I don't know, like, people, there's recency bias, but there's also when fighters are looking at other fighters and their opponents, there's like, oh, there's also memories of like those past fights, and they look at those past fights where he wasn't as good as he is now and look at those weaknesses, I guess, right? So
yeah,
there could be a bit of
yeah, he's got a couple of things going for him too that probably change the game. Like, he's obviously getting better every time we see him. Now, he does that because of the athlete he is, and we've also seen him make changes and adapt mid-fight. His fight IQ is what makes him so good, but also his team, the team themselves have a great fight IQ. They look at the opponents, they break it down, they have a game plan, they have a second backup game plan, they have a third, fourth, fifth. Like, it's very clear. They go, this is what we think is going to work. We're going to do that. But in case that's not working, let's make sure that we've got all these other potential things that we're going to be able to do as well. So if A, B, C doesn't work, we've got all the way through to Z, and then the next one after that. And his team are so good at that. So good at also going, well, what's this guy good at? How can we emulate that? Oh, we'll bring in Craig Jones. We'll bring in other people to wrestle and grapple. I actually feel like, so in my mind, Islam has to beat Volk early. And usually the Dagestanis are so good and they're so relentless and they break people. And I don't think Alexander Volkanovski can be broken. Not mentally. Like, sure, anyone can be broken physically. I don't think mentally you can break that man. And we've seen him in some incredibly crazy positions, in some crazy fights. We've seen him down at the beginning of, the second Max fight. And he never broke mentally. He never broke under the pressure. When he was in those submissions with Brian Ortega, he was like, I am not losing this. And I think that's going to be something different that Islam hasn't faced. And I think then that's also going to work in Volk's favor, that he's able to then adapt as the fight goes on.
Okay. So you think the adaptability, the many game plans will obviously favor him in a 5-round fight, which gives him more than enough time to sort of adapt to that game plan if he can survive, So
that's it.
Fight goes to a decision. Who do you see? You see Volk winning?
Well, I feel like this is us talking, like, I feel like this is similar to what we were talking about earlier. We need damage.
Yeah.
Volk lands a few decent shots before getting taken down. if Volk is constantly moving, trying to get back up, trying to do something, and I honestly think we'll see Volk throw up. Like if Islam is getting him down, I think we'll see Volk throw submission attempts up. That's not something he usually does.
Yeah.
I'm calling that. I
You're
think
calling it.
we will see that because he's been working with Craig Jones for a while, but he hasn't needed to use that game plan because based on the people that he has been facing. And if you get put in a crap position, often throwing up a submission attempt is usually like, even if you're not looking to finish the submission, it's a way to create space or create a reaction to be able to get up, to be able to move, to get maybe a sweep or to be able to go to another position. I think we might see, if we get into those scenarios where Islam has him down, Volk will obviously try and get back up, but it wouldn't surprise me if we do see some submission attempts, or at least one or two, even if they're not fully to submit, but to create that reaction, to use that opportunity to get back up.
And also to get Islam thinking, basically, and instead of like working on his own submissions, now he has to defend,
Exactly.
which nobody's really been able to do. But that goes to his squeeze. Everyone says he has this ridiculous squeeze, and they only understand what it is once they faced him or trained with him. What makes you think that Volk can get out of that if he gets in one of those positions where, Brian Ortega, because against Brian, he did say he was almost out. He was almost out, and then he got out of it. He was almost choked out.
He was saying it was tight. It was tight. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was going dark. Yeah.
But that's the thing, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, you won't break him mentally. He will fight till his last breath. And so Islam has to finish him if he has 1 centimeter, one more breath. He will fight till the end. So I think, with the fact that he can adapt, like he would have been training specific things to defend, to get back up, to move, whatever it is. But I think he also learns he's not going to keep doing the same thing. So where he goes, okay, this is what Islam's really good at. It's the body lock. This is how I can break the body lock. I think he's trained that a million times, but he's also probably trained 7 different ways so that he doesn't go, okay, this is how I escape it. And then Islam goes, oh, okay, that's what he did. So I'm going to do the body lock again, but now I'm going to do this instead. I feel like, that plays into Volk's sort of game that he usually does. He doesn't usually keep doing the same thing. And I feel like he's also probably going to come out at Islam a little bit more than maybe some of his prior opponents have. And like I said, we can get a decision win just by making sure you get damage done. And if you're throwing up sub attempts, you're moving. If Islam can't solidify a position, he can't do damage. He can't ground and pound. He can't do the submission. So that for me is the key, is get for Volk, if he's going to end up winning a decision, is get some damage done, even if it is on the ground or whatever, but we want to see hopefully standing. It would be nice if he could knock him out. That'd be great. But
there'll be openings.
If he can make it hard to be held down, it's very hard to also do damage in those positions. Like even when you're the guy on top, if the guy on the bottom is constantly moving and you're having a hard time holding them down, like you don't want to take away one of your posts or one of the things that's helping hold someone down to punch, and then they get back up.
Yeah. And that's what, and just again, like the body shape and everything, I think plays a factor, makes it a lot easier for him to escape. Whereas like it's harder to, it's easier for Islam probably to hold down people more his own height or taller opponents. So
especially because he would get his hips underneath the taller opponents. But Volk's shorter, Volk's hips are going to be lower. He can drop his weight too, even in those dominant positions. He's still probably going to make it really difficult.
And probably again, like when you say like the crowd influences the judges as well, like don't forget, like every little bit of damage, every little action that Volk's doing, I'm expecting a big roar from the crowd that might influence the judges as well. Like shots that might not be as hard are gonna get a big pop, and those are all factors that, again, I hope the odds don't change like before I bet them, but and before this episode drops. But 4-1 is insanity to me.
I'll be looking forward to hearing someone in the crowd yell out something outrageous, because almost every time I've been to a UFC event, someone in the crowd, when it's like dead silent, has yelled out something, and then you just hear the Australian crowd, like you can hear it on the replay, just start pissing themselves laughing. So you'd probably be familiar with the one where a guy yelled out, "Kick him in the dick," during one of Sam Alvey's fight.
Yeah, it was like,
and then
both acknowledged it.
And they both acknowledged it, and they were laughing, and they had to take a second and then retouch gloves and go, yeah, okay, let's start fighting again. Well, there was another time. It was another Sydney event. It was just a UFC fight night. And this was quite a few years ago. I guess before it was a little bit more mainstream and you sort of had a big variety in the type of people that would go to the events. It was still like barely any females, a lot of sort of gym bro guys and all of that kind of stuff. And this particular event was on in Sydney the same day as Mardi Gras. And also this was back when Mardi Gras too, again, similar kind of thing. It wasn't an everybody thing, like not as many everybody would go. It was more still when it really was the people who were, of the LGBTQ population. It didn't have as much of the non-LGBTQ people there supporting. So you had these two very, very different populations of people flooding Sydney on the same day. And there was a fight on and nothing much was happening. We're about a minute in and they were still kind of like walking around the cage, feeling it out, faking, fainting, nothing's been thrown. And someone just yells out, the whole place is dead silent. And this guy yells out, "That's it. I'm going to Mardi Gras." And everybody just lost it.
That's brilliant.
And you can't hear the guy on the replay, but you can hear the crowd just start laughing.
I can see that happening when the crowd goes a little bit silent. If Islam has a bit of success, like in the takedown, he's holding Volk down, and then it gets silent a little bit, and then someone starts yelling something.
Yeah, it always happens. Always happens. There's always something funny that gets said.
Well, you got to keep me posted on the night while you're there, and
absolutely,
you're going to be seeing the action. Where are your seats at? Are they like how far?
They're kind of near where they walk out, but in the sort of like as they're starting to get raised section. So usually where the camera they walk out, and then people like hanging over the edge and stuff. So like kind of along there somewhere.
That's perfect.
I don't 100% know because I haven't been to that arena before. So
it's new, huh?
Obviously it's brand new and it's in Western Australia, which is the other side of Australia to me.
Going all the way there.
Yeah, but I should have pretty good tickets, so
amazing.
Pretty good seats. So yeah, it's going to be so good. I cannot wait. Heading to Eternal the night before to watch one of my teammates fight. So
shout him out. Who is it?
Neem El Chapo Steven. He's fighting. If you've watched any of the Eternal MMA, which is the Australian promotion, you can see them. Yeah, you can see it on UFC Fight Pass. His last fight was an absolute banger.
Yeah.
So
and I love
really
the crowds.
excited to see him back in there.
I love the crowds on Eternal too. Like, I watch them whenever you fight or whenever you like tell me to watch it, and you're like, oh, you have to watch this fight and that one. I'm like, yeah, man, for a regional show, like, I like the crowd. It's really interactive, so it's a good show.
Yeah,
good show.
Australians, when they actually go to a fight night, they generally get involved, and yeah, you can hear them.
All right,
very vocal.
That's what we're expecting. We're expecting a huge event again, like what we think on paper should be like should be considered the biggest fight of all time in MMA. And I hope the event starts getting the attention it deserves right now.
So I just want to point out one thing. Okay, so method of victory and round.
Oh yeah, let's look into some prop bets.
What do you reckon? Alexander Volkanovski via submission in round 5 would get you.
I mean, oh man, that would be like.
You're right. It would be a pretty big. It would be like
80 to 1 or something.
$126 in round 4 or round 5.
Wow.
Jeez.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Um.
there's a reason
Whew.
the odds are that high too for that one, but that's like that kind of thing is worth $10. You know, why not?
I mean, it's worth $1. It
It's
wouldn't
worth
surprise
one.
me. Like, I might put $1 on a round 4 or round 5 submission by Volk. We've got
Yeah,
some
why not?
interesting ones in there.
I'm gonna look at them here too at the same time while you bring them up.
Yeah, so just if we just run through the method of victory, as always, a draw is $51. Makhachev by KO or TKO, $5.75. Via points, $3.80, and via submission, $2.45. So the betting odds are that he's going to win by a submission. Obviously, we have Alexander Volkanovski via points as the shortest odds at $5.90, via KO or TKO at $10.50, and via submission at $21.
That's the one I want. The
That's the one
Volkanovski
you want?
by TKO.
I actually think the best value bet on there is Alexander Volkanovski via points or submission for $4.90.
You would take that. Okay, points or something. Yeah, okay.
Points
Okay.
or submission.
You really
There's
seem
also
to. You have faith in like if it's going to be a finish for Volk, it's going to be a submission for you, is it?
no. I just think it's a good value.
It's just a good value.
We've got
Because what about
for
like
the KO or points is only $4.10.
$4.10. It's okay.
So if we've got Islam by submission or points, it's only $1.54.
Yeah, so that's yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense based on the betting odds outright, you know, for the winner. So, but
yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, the KO or submission is also really short at $1.78.
because I know we just finished breaking down this fight, but it's like the way. The reason I see a KO being set up is just, I think the leg kicks are gonna be such a big factor in this game, in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you take away that lead leg, it's hard to wrestle, it's hard to grapple. I
think he's gonna go after it like early and like hard as well, but like
100%.
while maintaining his distance, you know, jumping around, and make him think twice, make him, you know, because, and that's gonna end up setting up sort of that big shot. I think when he thinks maybe if something low is coming, and then he's gonna start swinging up high, and Islam's been knocked out before, or flash knocked down before, and it was, I think, early stoppage, but whatever, he's been knocked down. His chin has been tested.
Well, maybe you'll be interested in a Volk to win in round 4 or a Volk to win in round 5. It's paying $41. So if you're interested in a finish late in the fight,
yes, it would probably be late.
Pretty good odds.
He's putting money in the bank early on. Yeah, I see it happen.
For Islam, it kind of just goes round 1, we're in the $4, round 2 we're in the $6, round 3 we're in the $8, 4 and 12, round 5 and 15. So it just obviously favors a quick finish for him. But Volk, it's sitting pretty heavy. If you can call what round he's going to get a finish in, all of them are paying well. The shortest odds are $23. So, I mean, $41 for round 4 or 5.
So I'll put $10 on each round, basically, for him to win.
Yeah.
You know, end up making money if he ends up finishing the fight. So,
yeah.
I mean, so basically what we're telling everybody is betting on Islam is just not worth it, really.
Well, I mean, you just don't make much money. There's not much of a return on there. And I mean, if you think Islam's going to win, that's cool. Put your money on there, but you're not going to make much in return, even if he does win. So
it's weird because,
I mean, that's how betting works.
Yeah, it is. And the weird thing is that, like, as much as like I see all these factors in Volk's favor, and I know he's the pound for pound best and stuff, why does like inside of me still thinks like Islam is rightfully the favorite? You know?
I don't. You
don't think he's rightfully the favorite? I just think it should be way closer. That he is. Yeah. No, not the kind of favorite that he is, but like, do you think him being the favorite is?
Belt. Yeah. Interestingly enough, some good bets on there are combo ones. So you've got Islam to win by submission in rounds 1 or 2, $4. I thought that would have been a lot lower.
Oh.
So if you are going to
that might
vote
be
on
worth it.
Islam, they're the kind of bets that you want to go for.
Because
Or
yeah,
win by a submission in rounds 2 or 3, 550.
550 for
Yeah,
rounds 2 or 3. I mean, yeah,
2
because
or
I
3.
mean, the longer it goes, I think the more it favors Volk. So, and
Same.
also the more because
And the odds reflect that as well.
because you know Islam's
Yeah.
style in his last fights has been just go after the finish like early and often. If it gets into round 3, 4, it means that he's been surviving, and it's been getting frustrating for Islam to actually get his game plan going. So,
All right, in the combo, Alexander Volkanovski to win by submission in rounds 4 or 5, $67. So don't bet individually on either round or 4 or 5. Go the combo. Go him to win by submission in either rounds 4 or 5 because he's paying $67.
67. I don't have any because that's what I don't like about this website. Maybe the other one does it. They don't release all those odds until like a few days before the fight, like the full props for me. So I cannot even see what I'm gonna be betting.
So this one really surprises me. Oh, I guess not. I guess because Islam's the favorite, this makes a lot of sense. Will the fight go the distance? Yes, $2.47. No, $1.50. So I guess that makes sense because the odds are in the favor of Islam, and they are suggesting an early
When
finish.
is the last time? I'm looking at the last time he went to decision. Davi Ramos, 2019. Oh, that was the
that
Khabib.
long ago.
No, that's the Khabib Poirier card. That's to UFC 242. So that feels like yesterday, honestly.
And the fight
was the
directly
last
before
time he
that
won the
as well.
decision. What was it? Oh, the one before that was also a decision.
A decision.
Chris Wade again, like not the best competition. The other decision was against Nick Lentz.
Yeah, no, and Armin. How do you say his last name? So we had Davy Ramos, and then we had Armin. Yeah, that one.
Well, he's talented. But
now the pronunciation.
Armin,
but that was a decision as well.
Tsaroukian. That's how they say it. Man, I'm looking at this again. I'm looking at his Tapology, and I'm not seeing the level of competition that it takes to beat Volkanovski. But this is what I tell myself every single time. And then every single time he wins. So, but that wasn't against the pound for pound best. Again.
Yeah.
So, and the Bobby Green one was just like, come on. That's my guy. I had to bet on him.
True. That's understandable.
Yeah. But I didn't actually, but I mean, it was 5-1. I mean, I had to bet my guy.
Understandable.
Are there any prop bets? Because I was going to ask you about last thing. What's the prelim fight that you're looking forward to the most? What's a prelim fight that people should be watching?
Oh, definitely the main fight, the feature fight on the early prelims, Jack Jenkins. Look, Jack Jenkins has just come off of his Contender Series fight. He was on the last Dana White Contender Series for the last season. Got a contract. I just find it so funny. Dana called him one-dimensional, and he was just a grappler, which is hilarious because Jack Jenkins has made a career out of breaking people's legs. He's broken a few guys' legs, and he is predominantly a stand-up fighter. He can wrestle, he can grapple. He's very good at that too. He's very well-rounded, but he's a striker, and he's a very good striker. And as I said, he's made a career out of breaking people's legs. So the next sort of Justin Gaethje or Barboza.
I'm looking at. Wait, let me see. Jack Jenkins against Don Shanis. Is that still the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that because also Jack Jenkins, I heard of him from you, and when he was about to fight on Contender Series, and but I'm looking at the fight here, like the predictions on Tapology. 67% of the people are predicting him to get a TKO victory, TKO victory. So, and by the way, 92%
and Jack Jenkins
are saying he'll win.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, well, he should. Also, the one thing that Jack Jenkins has that no one else has is he has a little secret weapon called Benny P.
Benny P, yeah, legendary Ben P.
Legendary Ben P. For anyone who hasn't seen any of Jack Jenkins' social media, he went on a podcast, an Australian podcast, not too long ago, talking about his Contender Series fight. And then the lead up to that fight, he got a random message from a guy called Benny P, who had trawled the web to find information on Jack's Contender Series opponent, and he managed to track down some footage of this guy's fights from another country, and sort of said, look, he's only ever lost one fight, and in that one fight he got split open really, really bad above his eye, and I reckon if you can touch him there, you'll be able to split him back open and win. And then Jack was sort of saying on the podcast that he that's what he was thinking when he took the bloke down, and he was thinking about what Benny P said to him. And he elbowed the guy in the face and split him open. And he obviously got the finish in that fight as well and got himself a contract. But if we could all have some film study done by Benny P, maybe we'd all have a UFC contract.
I think Ben P is secretly like one of the brightest minds in combat sports that needs to be hired by the best fighters, to find those little things that the coaches are overlooking. Because Ben P made me a lot of money. My probably like the last or one of the last legs of my parlay. I had a big Contender Series parlay. I had $25 on it to win $750. And Jack Jenkins by stoppage, by finish, was like the last leg, I think, of that parlay. So thank you a lot, Benny P. I enjoyed that money. It came in handy in California because it's expensive as hell out there.
And just to wrap up that story, the good Aussie bloke that Jack Jenkins is, he made sure to help out Benny P be able to get his tickets to go to UFC in Perth. Amazing. So yeah. I mean, Aussies.
That's typical. That's
great bloke.
Typical.
Yeah, great
good
bloke.
Guy.
Yeah.
So Jack Jenkins, he's gonna break the legs of this opponent. Someone to watch. Contender Series, and like a lot of these and several of these Contender Series, people have been are getting the shine here on this card, on this pay-per-view. Well, not the pay-per-view portion of the card, but for me, it would be Shannon
Ross.
Shannon Ross. That's what. Why did I think Shannon Ross? Like, for some reason, I was like, in my head, that's an actor, but it's not. Shannon Ross, because on the losing end of a fight where he was extremely sick, right? It was like he was what was he dealing with?
Incredibly sick.
Yeah.
I think he had like a twisted bowel or something, or.
Yeah, was he? But so I think, was he the favorite then too to win at on Contender Series? But
yeah, I can't remember if he was the favorite.
I think he was the underdog. Either way, so Shannon Ross came up to Contender Series and he was fighting. I think he was the underdog too, and that's what made it even more incredible. And he was extremely sick, dealing with the illness during the fight as well. And it was like this massive back and forth where he also got dropped and then just came back, and then it was like
he showed
definitely
how tough he was.
Yeah, it was just such a good fight.
He had to have emergency surgery, so after the fight he got rushed to
immediately.
Hospital.
Not because of like injuries from the fight. It's like he was rushed to the hospital again.
Removed.
Yeah.
And he was severely in a lot of pain, obviously, when he had that fight, and he was like, no, this is my one shot. And
so rightfully, which never happens, like Dana White offered the losing fighter a contract, given the circumstances, and just like the story just blew up on the internet too, which gave him a lot of attention. So again, another Contender Series guy that I'm looking forward to, because also I like the way he showed himself, and if he can show himself in that way, like, considering the circumstances, imagine how he's gonna look now. Like,
when he's healthy,
and yeah.
Yeah, and one other thing to point out too, I did mention, obviously, the night before the UFC, the Australian promotion Eternal is on. Now, a lot of these guys we've been talking about that have recently gotten onto the Contender Series and now making waves in the UFC, they've all come from Eternal. They've all been the Eternal champs. So the two Jacks, Jack Jenkins, Jack Della Maddalena, and Shannon Ross as well. So it's really cool to see them all kind of on that same journey, have come from being champs in that particular Australian promotion and now coming through winning themselves contracts and doing it in such a fashion as Shannon Ross did, showing how tough he is, and how he wasn't going to lose his one shot, even though he was in incredible pain, and he was very very sick. So
But it
pretty
still
cool to
paid
see.
off. Yeah. And so Australian crowds, do you guys feel like, does the arena already feel like extremely full by the time like the first fight starts? Is it like, because some countries, in some places it is, in some places it's not, it depends.
Yeah. It kind of depends, I feel like, on the arena, because the arena that, say, like Rousey, Holm, and Izzy, Rob were in was a giant stadium, and so
That was a
obviously
stadium,
that's the
yeah.
stadium. Yeah, it's Marvel Stadium. Now that one is gigantic.
Yeah.
And so that's why those two pay-per-views events in that same arena in Australia hold the two record for the biggest crowds at them, because
Yeah.
so it's hard because it takes so long to actually get in and find the seats, because it is just such a giant place. And then you've got people getting up and going, getting food in between fights and that kind of stuff. So I think sort of at those bigger ones, it probably doesn't look quite as full as early, but generally the majority of the crowd is there pretty early on. Like Australia is diehard for these events, and it's the UFC doesn't come to Australia very often. So everybody wants to soak in every second of fights that they can. The only sort of barrier is how long it takes to potentially get inside and get to your seat, and because they're quite big. Now, the RAC Arena is nowhere near the same size as the Marvel Stadium. So there's still going to be thousands and thousands of people. There just won't be quite as many. But I will say the atmosphere when Holly Holm kicked Ronda Rousey in the face in an arena in front of a record-breaking crowd was insane.
That you could feel through the screen already. Like when I watched the fight back or the highlights again, like you already feel it. So I can only imagine how it was in the arena.
It was insane. Absolutely insane. Everybody was just like up on their chairs too, and jumping up and down, and it was deafening. It was very, very much a moment in history that I will never forget, because I had amazing seats for that event as well. So
were you already fighting then?
No, right? I hadn't started fighting yet. No, I was still just a fan.
Yeah. And now you're in it.
Now I'm in it.
Yeah, that's how I feel, but on a different end of it. So like, how is it? What is coming up for you? Let's like end on that.
What's coming up for me?
Yeah,
it's a big year. It's a big year ahead. So obviously last year, managed to become a world champion in the featherweight division. We've got wrong side. Yeah, that's the Gamma gold medal just there. Hang on. So yeah, became a world champion, won a world title in the featherweight division. Now I'll probably never fight in the featherweight division again, but this year I'm still amateur. 2023 holds some really big goals. So this year I'm going to try and do something that's incredibly rare in MMA before I finish my amateur career, or to round out my amateur career. I'm going to try and become a triple weight division champion, which is insane. So
so that includes the Gamma, it's featherweight.
That includes the Gamma. Okay, yeah, that's feather. My next fight coming up is for bantamweight title. Not a world title, but still bantamweight title. And then I'll be making my debut at flyweight, and that will also be for a title fight, and seeing if I can bring home the trifecta.
That would be
before
perfect.
Yeah, it would be pretty crazy. Obviously that's a huge weight range. As featherweight is 65.8, bantamweight is 61.2, and this is in kilos. But flyweight is 56.7. Wow. So that's a huge range. That's nearly 10 kilos. So
man,
yeah, big big task ahead. We'll see how we go, but I'm looking to do something super, super duper rare in mixed martial arts, and that will be to round out my amateur career. And then for the second half of 2023, the goal is to go pro and
Go pro.
ride the wave and see if I can get to a point where I'll be on the next UFC card in Australia. So
Hopefully in closer to home, not to Perth. Either way,
Perth.
I don't think you'll be picky
Yeah.
about it once it happens.
No,
know?
of course not. Of course not.
And maybe you go through the Contender Series route as well. So, and then people already know your story.
Plenty of goals. Yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. No, I hope it for you. I know you can do it though. You have the mindset for it, and like I've seen you, up close winning that Gamma title. I was there, throughout the whole week, and I know how you're putting it all together now. Fight dietitian. There's a big testament to him for you, being able to get at least that flyweight title. That'll be a big testament to them as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I use Ryan, so he's part of the fight dietitian team, but his actual name is the dojo dietitian because they all have slightly different names. But yeah, that's been a huge thing. It's so crazy. I did put up a story on Instagram a few days ago about a photo from 5 years ago. When I'd started training and stuff, and I was like the fittest and leanest and strongest that I'd ever been. And then I was like, wow, that was more than 10 kilos ago. Well and truly more than 10 kilos ago of what I'm like walking around at the moment now. So it's so crazy how like your body changes and what you can get out of it and what you can do, especially when you've got a good team around you and you invest in finding the right people to assist you. So yeah.
And and I'll keep letting him know that you're the one that sent me every time I send my fighters there. So they're gonna get a lot of business soon. Like, or they're starting to get it already. So, but that's also thanks to you and your loyalty. So yeah. They really have it down to a science. I'm just amazed every time, and the way they run their social media is just. I've seen so many fighters like recently post either dojo dietitian, fight dietitian, like just those clips they make, because they just make it really interesting and accessible. It's a good marketing tactic. So just wanted to shout them out for that.
Interesting, accessible, and simple. Like they don't overcomplicate things. Like they read all the science, but then they try and make the information they provide as simple as possible. And they're not hiding anything. It's not like, they're going to do something and not allow you to learn and know how to do it. And they're like they want to give people the resources. If you wanted to do something with them and then you do something with them for a while and you learn enough that you don't need them anymore, that's great. They're not going to keep secrets from you or be like, no, I'm going to send you a rehydration drink because I don't want to teach you what you should be drinking kind of thing, or, there's no secrets. But yeah, I think
when we were already in the talking phase, I was given like a brochure or some sort of a recipe as well. I think that was like part of it already because we had interacted, I think it was provided for free as well.
There's heaps of free resources that they're putting out there, podcasts and like recipe books and like info. Like there's so much out there, and they're making sure that people are able to access the correct information because there is so much out there that people sometimes can feel like they're drowning in information.
And then the affordable packages as well. It's I think that just the lowest one was like 45 Australian dollars, which is like $30 US, by the way, per week. So it's very affordable for the type of work they do. Trust me, like look it up, guys. If you're a fighter, AMI or pro, whatever, they have packages for everyone. So, and
or even if you're not a fighter, they actually do nutrition for anyone, any sport, or even just a regular person. Obviously, there's not as much involved with a regular person or maybe some particular sports or whatever, but you don't actually have to be a fighter to contact them for if you need help or assistance or guidance. So keep in mind that as well.
All right. There we go. That's the best promo they can have. Okay. Danielle, thank you so much for doing this. I'm looking forward to this event. Actually got a lot more hyped while we're doing this. So because I just started to realize just how small the details are between a lot of these fights, all the storylines that can come out of it, always, and
Oh, absolutely.
just how many upsets can happen. Yeah.
That's it. I should have done I should have had a look at what the return would be if you were to bet on every single Australian on the card.
Oh,
That's what I should do.
I'm about to do that, and then I'll send it to you after. How it is for me. Just like to win straight up.
Yeah, so if we
Yeah.
go Jack Jenkins, Jamie Malarkey, Shannon Ross, Josh Coolibao, Tyson Pedro, Justin Taffer, Jimmy Crute, Jack Della Maddalena, and Volkanovski. That would be a 9-leg multi paying $167.08.
Are we gonna do it? Has it ever happened? Someone should look this up if this
Put
has ever
$1
happened.
on it.
Yeah.
Probably not. But in saying that, though, I think one of the Australian UFC events that I went to, a fight night, was one of the first cards in UFC history that not a single fight went to the judges. That was a crazy day. Every single fight was a finish.
I think that one of the UFC Londons had the same thing. And
Yeah,
again, it goes to say, when there is a loud crowd in places where the UFC doesn't go as often, as although London is like becoming a frequent thing, you're gonna get a lot of finishes. I think if fighters are extra hyped to put on a show, they want to get it done, and they either take risks, and both fighters are taking risks. Both fighters put defense out the window, like half the time.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
awesome.
Let's put out, so as usual, before the fight happens, probably the day before, the odds, well, not the odds, but like our picks, my picks will come out. Do you actually want to do, maybe we should do it this time. Maybe we should have Drop Bear's picks and my picks, like just parlays and stuff like that. Like, what are you betting on? What, even if you're not betting it, just put it out.
Well, yeah, all right. I'll have a think.
If you
about
want, maybe like one parlay, like, one Drop Bear parlay.
I don't know. I'm thinking about putting $1 on this 9-leg multi, to be honest.
That could be it. That could be the one.
Actually, I think I'm going to put $5 on that bet for Volk for a submission in rounds 4 or 5, the one that was paying $67.
Man, unfortunately, I don't have.
I don't know if it'll happen, but
I could bet like, so 5 on round 4 and 5 on round 5 submission, something like that.
True.
We'll try it out. Why not? I'll just go off of it.
I really was hoping, so for some of the really big events, sports bet, and it might just be because we're still just over a week away from the fight. So some of the other fights don't have all of the different odds up yet.
Mm-hmm.
But usually when there's a really, 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 really big main event on, so usually like a Conor fight or something like that, sports bet actually do a create your own bet, and so everybody sends in what they want to bet on, and Sportsbet makes odds for them. So it could be anything like, so for example, some of the Conor fights where Conor will walk out with an Irish flag. Conor will do the millionaire strut. Conor won't touch gloves, or like the fighters won't touch gloves, or it'll be like there'll be a certain amount of knockdowns in the whole fight and it will end in a submission, or it'll be,
it's like one of those, like,
could be anything.
Some of those that people usually have to request at the bookies, like specific odds for.
Yeah. So anyone could sort of ask, and like all the top few hundred of them, they sort of add. And sometimes there's like crazy ones, absolutely crazy ones, and some of the craziest, longest odds you've ever seen, where it's like, this person's going to jump in the cage after the fight and call someone out or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that they would do that for this event. But, you never know. I'll keep an eye on it and see if maybe that's something that happens closer to the fight, but it might not.
It'll come out if it's an Aussie website. I mean, it's probably going to have to happen for this one as well. But that
I don't know.
But
yeah, it definitely usually happens closer. And also, as I said, usually with the ones that have gotten like crazy big hype. So that's why I'm kind of like, well, maybe it won't happen for this one, just because, as we talked about at the start, the UFC and the media aren't hyping this up at all.
Like, how crazy? I don't get it.
No, me either.
Do you have a crazy prediction? Like, what's something you would want to add if you've already thought about it? Like as a crazy prop bet like that. Like what's something you think should be there?
Volk winning and calling out Khabib to come back. Or something like that.
That would be, it would be like, yeah, if it would be his sense of humor for sure. I mean, Khabib is not going to be, well, he might be in attendance. He's not going to be in the corner. So
No, he's not going to be in attendance at all. No.
I wonder if he'll ever, if people are just going to start like dismissing if Volk wins like any credits, to be like, oh, Islam's first fight without Khabib in the corner.
Well, no, because he's fought without Khabib before.
It's been a while. I mean, like that's
yes,
long,
he's
long
obviously
time.
been there for the last few. Yeah.
Yeah. How many people are just not gonna give him his flowers?
Well, that's the thing. Volk did speak on Helwani's show, sort of saying like, remember how much you're talking him up. Remember how much you think he's, the favorite. And when I beat him, don't take that away from me. Don't you dare give any excuses. Oh, he didn't have Khabib, or oh, well, he never really was that good. He's like, remember all these things you're saying about him, and you remember that when I beat him. And don't take that away from me. And I was like, yeah, what an attitude.
Exactly.
What an attitude to have.
Exactly. Because if Islam wins, like people are just gonna brush it off as if it's just any win. They're not even gonna give him that much credit, I think, which is also crazy.
Probably not. Yeah.
And if Volk wins, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, see, he hasn't fought anyone of significance yet, except Charles, and that was his only first one." You know? Then either way, I feel like nobody's gonna win as big as they deserve.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why the hype is kind of like less on this fight, even though it is the biggest fight.
Yeah, maybe because either which way, there's like someone's stocks are going down.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of a lose-lose, as well as, it's a win-win to put the event on, but potentially a lose-lose in terms of what happens next for one of them, because they both got big markets of fans behind them. So
yeah.
Maybe that's got something to do with it.
It all unfolds next Saturday, this coming Saturday, basically.
Except if you're in Australia, in which case it's actually Sunday.
Actually, you know what? In Europe, it's also Sunday because it's going to be US time, so it's going to be in the morning hours. So Sunday for both continents. In the US, it's going to be Saturday, which is wild. And it all unfolds, and it's going to be electrifying, and I think the hype afterwards is going to be way, way, way bigger than the hype that's going in before. So stay tuned. Hopefully magic happens.
Absolutely.
Hopefully
a historic event, historic moment in time for the UFC.
I sent a lot of pictures.
I will.
Hey, have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.